I take Masa, I say, as we grow up, we spend our life, perhaps more so in India, we talked about cultural things, right?
Yeah.
We spend our life de-risking our children.
Explain.
The kid is born, you want to drop him to school, say, hold my hand. Every time you cross the road, you look left, you look right. Don't eat that. Don't touch that. That's dirty, right? Don't put that in your mouth. How many times have your parents or my parents admonished us as a mechanism of showing their love and trying to teach us the way of life, in constantly allowing, sort of taking from their mental model what was risky, what could have some consequence, and trying not to have their kids do that, right? And use that in life. And of course, our favorite Indian pastor was like, it's time you got old, it's time for you to get married and settle down, right? Because we're deemed unsettled and possibly prone to high risk if you're not married. So there's whole sort of cultural philosophy is to settle your kids, make sure they have a stable job, stable life, kids, and they're fully settled. That's the best risk manager in the world. It's your mother, right? And here we're sitting and talking about taking more risk, dreaming bigger, and building great things. So with that as a frame of reference, Masa was the kid. He turned 50 when I started working with him. And I'd say between the age of 50 to 60, he was sort of Benjamin Button, right? He was touching everything his mother said don't touch, and he was putting everything in his mouth and being more and more risky and dreaming bigger than anyone else I've known in my life. Forget any entrepreneur. Every entrepreneur was trying to take risk to build a stable business and get rich. Masa the other way around. What are we going to do today? Great, all in. So, what are we doing tomorrow? I'm all in. Masa has a phenomenal risk appetite. And if you look at it, that's the way he led his life. And funnily enough, he struck it 4 times. He built SoftBank from nothing. He built Yahoo Japan. He invested in Alibaba. He did ARM. All these things have worked for him. And by the way, he had risk appetite because his volatility is high. He was the richest man in the world for a few days, and then he was almost bankrupt at one point in time. So you learn that risk appetite is actually something we govern, but it is significantly influenced culturally.
Seems like a good way to live. If we have one life and life is meant to be experienced, Masa's way.
Yes, Nikhil, I think that's true. And you and I have the luxury to be able to say that. It doesn't work well with Maslow's hierarchy.
Explain.
Well, Maslow's hierarchy suggests that you know what it is. And when you find a person who has no food and no money and has to feed his family, he's not worried about taking more risk and living one life. He's looking to create that stability. So the risk appetite can change when you reach the aspiration state of your life. The point is, he recognized.
Do you think AI changes that? More people move higher up the order in the hierarchy?
You're moving questions too fast. I wasn't done with the last one, thinking through that one. But do I think AI changes our risk appetite? I don't think anything changes Maslow's hierarchy. In fact, I think there is a risk in the short term that AI creates more fear around Maslow's hierarchy than not.
Because?
Look, if you read everything out there, if you see the science, it seems like repetitive tasks are going to get easily overtaken by AI, and that's kind of its contribution to society in the next 2 to 3 years, which directly targets the early in career part of people's lives and the part where they're trying to go pay their college loans in this country, or where they're trying to settle down and get sort of their basic needs met. So the question is, if I can't get out of college with a loan and find a job that I'm going to be adding value on, then that probably impacts my Maslow's hierarchy more than it impacts my risk appetite.
But if there is no social mobility really in the world, and rich people stay rich people and they stay higher up in Maslow's hierarchy, do you think generationally people become more risk averse, or they're able to take risk more easily? Like your kids or the kids of your kids would be freer in taking risk?
It's kind of a very interesting social experiment here. I think you can talk about predisposition, but not personality. What I mean by that is, because your kids or my kids are going to grow up in a slightly different circumstance that perhaps you and I grew up with, they're going to have different predispositions. Like, when I grew up, my father didn't have a car till I was 18, right? We ate meat once a week because that was the norm.
Same.
Right? So that's a different cultural upbringing than my kids. My kids don't have those constraints. They don't live with scarcity. So, but the question is, it's very hard, and this is, you should ask a sociologist this question as opposed to me, but it's very hard to take that and ascertain where the drive comes from. I've seen very well-to-do kids who have tremendous drive, who want to prove something. I've seen very poor kids with no drive. So there seems to be a difference of, gene in you which defines how you drive yourself and how you think about ambition and proving yourself. I'm sure the upbringing, the factors around you have a role in finally defining what your passion is and where you go prove yourself. But I still feel that there's an inner drive that comes from something different for people, which is somewhat not 100% correlated to upbringing.